Story 1. The monitor that never slept. The screen shouldn't have been active. Platform D7 had been sealed 3 years ago after the ceiling collapse, condemned and removed from all operational systems. Yet there it was on monitor 14, displaying live feed in grainy infrared, empty tracks, damaged support beams, and something moving at the far edge of the frame. Something that stopped when I leaned closer. Something that seemed to know I was watching. My name is Gerald Pritchard, and I've been Senior Control Room Supervisor for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for the past 11 years. The night shift suits me. Always has. There's a rhythm to it, a predictable cadence of trains arriving and departing, the soft click of keyboards, the low murmur of radio chatter, and the ambient glow of 247 monitors displaying every platform, corridor, and junction in the system. The room itself is a cathedral of surveillance, dim and cool, with rows of screens arranged in a gentle curve that wraps around the command station like the bridge of a ship navigating an underground sea. Most people find the overnight hours oppressive, but I find comfort in the routine. The city sleeps above us, but down here the metro breathes. Every train is a heartbeat. Every signal change is a synapse firing. I know this system better than I know my own apartment. I can tell when a train is running 3 seconds behind schedule just by the interval between departure pings. I can identify which ventilation fan is failing by the pitch of its hum through the audio monitors. This job isn't just about watching screens. It's about understanding the organism we're inside. The night of November 7th started like any other. I arrived at 2200 hours, relieved Marcus from the day shift, and settled into my chair with the usual handover notes. Minor delay on the Blue Line due to a passenger medical emergency. Scheduled maintenance on track 11 between midnight and 0300 hours. A faulty turnstile at Greenway Station. Nothing unusual. Marcus looked tired, eager to leave, and I didn't blame him. We exchanged pleasantries, he logged out, and I was alone. The control room at night is never truly silent, but it achieves a kind of meditative quiet. The building itself, an old repurposed warehouse from the 1940s, settles into itself after sunset. The ventilation system cycles down to minimum. The fluorescent lights in the back corridors dim to emergency levels. And the monitors, all 247 of them, become the only sources of light, casting the room in a flickering blue-gray twilight. By 23:30, the last of the evening commuters had cleared the system, and we entered what I call the maintenance window, the stretch between midnight and 0500 hours when train frequency drops and the real work begins. Track inspections, signal testing, cleaning crews. It's a choreographed ballet of engineering, and my job is to ensure every dancer knows their cue. I was reviewing the maintenance schedule on my primary terminal when I noticed it. Monitor 14, positioned in the second row, third from the left, was displaying active feed. That shouldn't have been possible. Monitor 14 was hard linked to camera D7, which overlooked platform D7, a section of the old downtown extension that had been closed to the public and removed from service after a partial ceiling collapse in the spring of 2020. The platform had been sealed with concrete barriers, the tracks decommissioned, and the camera itself was supposed to have been disconnected during the safety review that followed. I had personally witnessed the disconnection order being filed. The feed should have been dead, but there it was. Live, active. The image was grainy, rendered in the high-contrast infrared spectrum our older cameras defaulted to in low-light conditions. I could see the outline of platform D7, the broken tiles, the exposed rebar hanging from the damaged ceiling, the yellow caution tape sagging across the entrance. The tracks were still there, dark and unused, disappearing into the tunnel mouth at the far end. I leaned forward, squinting at the screen. There was no movement, no maintenance crew, no reason for the feed to be live. I pulled up the camera control interface and checked the system logs. According to the database, camera D7 had been deactivated on May 14, 2020, at 16:42. No reactivation order, no maintenance ticket, no scheduled inspection. I should have logged it as a glitch and moved on. Should have filed a technical note for the day shift to investigate. But something about the feed held my attention. It wasn't just that the camera was active, it was the quality of the image. The infrared was too clear, too detailed, as though the camera had been recently serviced. And the timestamp in the corner was current, updating in real time. I tried to turn the camera off remotely. The command failed. I tried to cycle the feed to another monitor. It remained locked on monitor 14. Fine, I thought. I'll just cover it with a fault notice and let the techs handle it in the morning. But I didn't cover it. I kept watching. At 01:17, I saw the first sign of movement. It was subtle, so subtle that I almost convinced myself I had imagined it. Near the far end of the platform, close to the tunnel entrance, a shadow shifted. Not like a person walking into frame, but like something that had been there all along, adjusting its position. I froze. The infrared didn't show fine details, but it captured heat signatures and outlines. Whatever I was looking at didn't move like a rat or a stray cat. It moved with intention, slowly, deliberately. It stepped from behind one of the support pillars and paused, as though surveying the platform. My mouth went dry. I glanced around the control room. I was alone. The nearest colleague was Denise, stationed 2 floors down in the dispatch hub, and we only communicated through intercom if something critical came up. I looked back at monitor 14. The shape was still there, motionless now, positioned near the edge of the platform. I couldn't tell if it was facing toward the camera or away from it. The resolution wasn't fine enough. I reached for the radio to call down to security, then hesitated. What would I even say? There's something moving on a sealed platform. They'd think I was seeing things. Fatigue hallucinations were a known hazard of night shift work. The company had sent around a memo about it just last month. I decided to keep watching. Over the next 40 minutes, the shape moved 3 more times. Each movement was slow, methodical, almost mechanical. It paced along the length of the platform, stopping occasionally as though inspecting the walls or the ceiling. At one point, it crouched near the tracks, and I felt a chill crawl up my spine. The posture was wrong, too low, too angular, like something mimicking human movement without fully understanding it. At 0203, it looked directly at the camera. I know how that sounds. I know how impossible it is to determine eye contact through an infrared feed at that distance. But I felt it. The shape stopped mid-step, turned its head toward the lens, and stood perfectly still. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. The shape didn't move, didn't blink, just stared. I forced myself to look away to check the other monitors, to remind myself that I was in a secure control room 2 miles away from platform D7. Nothing on that screen could reach me. Nothing on that screen was real. When I looked back, it was gone. I spent the next 20 minutes rewinding the footage, trying to find the moment it disappeared. But the feed didn't record. The system indicated that camera D7 wasn't linked to any storage server. The footage existed only in the live moment, then vanished. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a maintenance worker who had accessed the platform without logging in. Maybe it was a homeless person who had found a way past the barriers. Maybe it was a trick of the light, a combination of shadows and decaying infrastructure that my tired brain had interpreted as something more sinister. But none of those explanations felt right. At 0345, I noticed something new. The timestamp. It had been updating normally all night, tracking real time, but now, as I watched, it began to slow. Not dramatically, but noticeably. Seconds stretched longer. the numbers updated in irregular intervals. And then at 0412, the timestamp jumped forward, not by seconds, by minutes. The feed now displayed 0427. I checked the system clock on my terminal. It read 0412. The feed was showing the future. My hands trembled as I logged the anomaly in the incident report system, typing quickly, trying to sound professional and clinical. Monitor 14 displaying unauthorized feed from decommissioned camera D7. Timestamp irregularity noted. Request immediate technical review. I hit submit. The screen flickered. When it stabilized, the timestamp had corrected itself. 0412, current time. But the platform was no longer empty. The shape was back, closer now. Standing directly in the center of the frame, facing the camera. And behind it, barely visible in the grainy infrared, were others. 3, maybe 4, arranged in a loose semicircle, all motionless. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The figures didn't move. I walked to the monitor, close enough that my breath fogged the screen. Up close, the image degraded into pixels and noise, but I could still make out the basic forms. Human-shaped, but wrong, proportions slightly off, limbs too long, heads tilted at unnatural angles. I reached out to touch the screen, my fingertip hovering an inch away. The feed cut to black. Monitor 14 went dark, completely, no static, no error message, just an empty black rectangle. I exhaled slowly, stepping back. The screen remained dark for the rest of my shift. At 0600 hours, Marcus arrived for the handover. He looked rested, cheerful, ready to start his day. I gave him the usual rundown, train schedules, maintenance updates, minor delays. I mentioned that Monitor 14 had gone offline and needed a tech to check it. He nodded, made a note, and didn't ask any follow-up questions. I didn't mention the footage, didn't mention the shapes, didn't mention the timestamp. Because when I pulled up the incident report system to show him my logged anomaly, there was no record of it. The report I had submitted at 0412 didn't exist. The logs showed nothing unusual. No glitches, no errors, just a routine night. I left the building as the sun was rising, the morning shift flooding in with coffee and conversation. The city above was waking up, oblivious to the things that moved in the sealed places below. I've worked 6 more night shifts since then. Monitor 14 has remained dark. Camera D7 has not reactivated. But last night, Monitor 15 started displaying a feed I didn't recognize. And the timestamp is 3 minutes ahead. Some feeds show you what's happening. Others show you what's coming. I used to think surveillance meant watching the present. Now I'm not so sure. There are places in this system that exist outside our schedules, our maps, our control. And sometimes when you watch them long enough, they start watching back. Story 2, Radio Channel 9 at 0314. Channel 9 hadn't been used in over a decade, retired after the Westbrook Station incident and reassigned to a dead frequency reserved for emergency archives. So when the transmission crackled through at exactly 0314, my first thought was interference. My second thought died when I heard the voice issuing evacuation protocols for a station breach that never happened. My third thought came when I ran the voice analysis and saw my own vocal signature staring back at me from the screen. My name is Daniel Moss, and I've been the control room communications lead for the past 8 years. My job is straightforward. Monitor all internal radio traffic across the metro system, filter legitimate operator transmissions from background noise, and ensure that emergency channels remain clear for critical incidents. I work the night shift, 2200 hours to 0600 hours, 5 days a week. It's solitary work, but I prefer it that way. Radio communication is a precise language, and interference is the enemy of clarity. The control room's communication hub is a compact station within the larger operations center, a soundproofed alcove lined with receivers, frequency monitors, and recording equipment that captures every transmission made within the metro network. I wear a headset for most of my shift, toggling between channels, listening to the nocturnal symphony of maintenance crews, security sweeps, and the occasional late-night operator checking in from a distant terminus. There are 42 active channels in the system. Channels 1 through 6 are reserved for train operators. Channels 7 and 8 are for maintenance and engineering. Channels 10 through 15 are for security. Channels 16 through 30 are administrative. Channels 31 through 42 are spares, activated only during special events or system-wide emergencies. Channel 9 is none of these. Channel 9 was decommissioned in 2013 after the Westbrook Station incident, a structural collapse during renovations that killed 2 workers and injured 7 others. The channel had been used to coordinate the emergency response, and afterwards, as part of a systems overhaul, the frequency was retired, not reassigned, not repurposed. Just archived, locked into a read-only state in the historical logs. I've been monitoring these channels for 8 years. I know their rhythms, their quirks, their silences. Channel 9 has been silent for every single one of those shifts. Until last Tuesday. At 0314, my headset crackled with a transmission. I frowned, adjusting the frequency dial. Static sometimes bled between channels, especially during atmospheric interference or when maintenance crews were running equipment tests. But this wasn't static. This was a voice, clear, calm, professional. Control, this is Channel 9, initiating evacuation protocol for Westbrook Station. Structural breach detected in tunnel section 7B. Requesting immediate shutdown of Blue Line service and rerouting to surface transit. Repeat, this is Channel 9. Structural breach at Westbrook. Evacuation in progress. I sat upright, my pulse quickening. Westbrook Station was still operational, one of our busiest hubs, but there was no current maintenance scheduled, no structural work, no reason for an evacuation. I pulled up the live system map on my monitor. Blue Line trains were running normally, no delays, no alerts. Westbrook showed green across the board. I keyed my own microphone. Channel 9. This is communications lead. Identify yourself and confirm your location. No response. I replayed the transmission from the digital recorder. The voice came through again, identical in tone and cadence, delivering the same message word for word. The timestamp on the recording read 031407. I checked the frequency log. Channel 9 wasn't supposed to be capable of transmitting. It had been locked at the hardware level, its access codes deleted from the master system. I pulled up the emergency contact list and called down to the Blue Line dispatch supervisor. Hey, this is Moss in communications. Are you seeing any issues at Westbrook? Negative, came the reply. Everything's running smooth. Why? Just checking. Got a weird transmission, probably a fault. You want me to send someone to look? No, it's fine. I'll log it. I hung up and stared at the frequency monitor. Channel 9's indicator light was dark, inactive. But the transmission had been real. I'd heard it, recorded it. I filed an incident report, noted the anomaly, and moved on with my shift. The next night at exactly 0314, it happened again. Same voice, same message, same timestamp. Control, this is Channel 9, initiating evacuation protocol for Westbrook Station. Structural breach detected in tunnel section 7B. Requesting immediate shutdown of Blue Line service and rerouting to surface transit. This time, I was ready. I recorded the transmission, isolated the audio file, and ran it through our voice analysis software, a system we use to verify operator identities during emergency situations. The software processed the waveform, comparing it against the database of registered personnel. The match came back in 4 seconds. Vocal signature, Daniel Moss. Confidence, 94.7%. I stared at the screen, my breath shallow. That wasn't possible. I hadn't made that transmission. I had been sitting in my chair, silent, listening. The voice on the recording sounded like mine, but it wasn't mine. It couldn't be. I played the transmission again, listening carefully. The tone was flat, clinical, professional. The way I sounded when I was delivering routine reports, but there was something underneath it, something I couldn't quite place. A weariness, a resignation. I ran the analysis again. Same result. I didn't file a report that night. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat in the dim alcove, staring at the frequency monitor, waiting. At 03:14 the next night, the transmission returned, but this time, it was longer. Control, this is Channel 9. Initiating evacuation protocol for Westbrook Station. Structural breach detected in tunnel section 7B. Requesting immediate shutdown of Blue Line service. Casualties confirmed. Repeat. Casualties confirmed. Do not enter tunnel section 7B. The ceiling is compromised. I repeat, do not enter. We're pulling back to platform level. My hands gripped the edge of the desk. Casualties. The original Westbrook incident had resulted in casualties, but this wasn't a historical recording. The timestamp was current, and the voice was still mine. I checked the system logs. No activity on Channel 9, no transmissions logged. The recording existed only in my headset, in the isolated buffer I had set to capture it. I began researching the original Westbrook incident, pulling archived reports from the digital library. The collapse had occurred on March 4, 2013 at approximately 0250. The evacuation had been chaotic, uncoordinated, hampered by a failure in the emergency communication system. Channel 9 had been the primary frequency used during the response. I found the incident transcript, a log of every transmission made that night. I scrolled through it, my stomach tightening. At 03:14, there was a transmission from communications lead Daniel Moss, me, issuing evacuation orders. But I hadn't been working for the MTA in 2013. I'd been hired in 2016. I checked my employment records. Confirmed. I started on June 12, 2016. But the transcript listed my name, my voice signature, my transmission. I printed the document, staring at the text, trying to make sense of it. How could I have been there? How could my voice be in a recording from 3 years before I was hired? At 03:14 the following night, the transmission evolved again. Control. This is Channel 9. Evacuation incomplete. Westbrook is compromised. I'm the only one left on comms. I can hear the structure failing. I can hear them down there. I don't think they made it out. I don't think I'm making it out. If anyone's listening, don't come back for us. Don't use this channel. It doesn't go where you think. The transmission ended. I sat in the silence, my headset heavy on my ears. The voice had been mine, but the exhaustion, the fear, the finality, that was someone else. Someone who had lived through something I hadn't. I stopped coming to work after that. Called in sick, took personal leave, avoided the control room. But last night I received a call from the night shift supervisor. They needed coverage. Someone had quit unexpectedly. Just one shift, just tonight. I agreed. I'm sitting in the alcove now, staring at the frequency monitor. It's 03:13. The equipment hums softly around me. The headset rests on the desk. I know what's going to happen at 03:14. I know I'm going to hear that voice again. But this time I think I'm going to answer. Channels carry more than voices. They carry echoes, moments that refuse to end. I used to think radio waves were neutral, that they only transmitted what we sent. But some frequencies remember. Some frequencies repeat. And if you're not careful, you might find yourself answering a call that isn't meant for you yet. Story 3, The Unscheduled Train on Track 6. The master console was absolute. Every train in the network existed within it, tracked, logged, authorized. That's why the appearance of an unregistered ID on Track 6 felt like a violation of the system's fundamental logic. No operator badge, no scheduled route, just a 6-car train cruising slowly through the midnight hours, its speed and dwell time matching the exact pattern from the incident report I'd memorized during training. The one where the brakes failed, the one where nobody survived. And when the doors opened on the security feed, the interior lights flickered like a failing heartbeat. My name is Evelyn Carver, and I've been the Central Operations Supervisor for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 9 years. My role is to maintain absolute situational awareness of every train, every track, and every movement within the network. The master console is my domain, a sprawling digital interface that displays the entire metro system in real time, reduced to lines, nodes, and moving icons. Each icon represents a train tagged with a unique ID, linked to an operator badge, and locked into a schedule verified down to the second. There is no ambiguity in this system. Every train that moves does so with authorization. Every departure is logged. Every arrival is confirmed. I know where every train is, where it's been, and where it's going. That's the job. That's the responsibility. The night shift is quieter than the day, but it's no less demanding. Between midnight and 0500 hours, we run a reduced schedule. Maintenance windows, cleaning crews, occasional late-night service for shift workers and insomniacs. I track them all. 23 trains operational during peak overnight hours, spread across 4 lines moving through the city like blood through veins. It was November 14th, a Tuesday, when I first saw it. The clock read 0142. I was monitoring a scheduled maintenance stop on Track 11 when a new icon appeared on the master console. Track 6, blue line, heading eastbound. The icon was gray, unregistered, no train ID, no operator badge, no scheduled route. I frowned and tapped the icon, pulling up its metadata. The system returned an error. Train ID not recognized. Operator badge not detected. Authorization status unknown. That wasn't supposed to be possible. Every train in the fleet had a unique identifier hardwired into its control systems. Every operator carried a badge that linked to their personnel file. Every movement required authorization from Central Operations. From me. I checked the live camera feed for Track 6. The image loaded slowly, the connection lagging slightly, but after a moment I saw it. A 6-car train, older model, blue line livery, sitting stationary on the track. The platform was empty, no passengers, no crew. I keyed the radio. Track 6, this is Central Operations, identify yourself. Static. Track 6, respond. You are not scheduled for this route. Identify your operator badge and state your authorization code. No response. I pulled up the dispatch log, cross-referencing every train that should have been in that section. The nearest scheduled train was 8 minutes away, still 3 stations back. There was no maintenance crew logged for Track 6. No emergency reroute, no explanation. I zoomed in on the camera feed. The train's exterior lights were on, casting a pale glow on the platform tiles. The windows were dark, no interior lighting. I couldn't see inside. I tried pinging the train's onboard system remotely, a diagnostic tool we use to check speed, brake status, and door controls. The system returned another error. Connection failed. Train ID not recognized. I stood up, pacing the length of the control room. The other supervisors were focused on their own sections, their screens glowing softly in the dim light. I didn't want to escalate this yet, not until I understood what I was looking at. I sat back down and watched the icon on the console. At 0147, it started moving, slowly, deliberately. The speed indicator showed 15 kilometers per hour, well below the standard operating speed for that section. It crawled along track 6, approaching the next station, Ridgewood, with the kind of measured pace you'd expect from a train under manual control during an emergency. I pulled up the historical incident database, searching for any precedent. My search returned 63 results for unscheduled train, most of them clerical errors or system glitches that were resolved within minutes. But one entry caught my eye. Incident report number 4721. Date, March 22, 2009. Blue Line train 607 experienced catastrophic brake failure on track 6, resulting in collision with platform barrier at Ridgewood Station. 6 fatalities, 14 injuries. Train declared total loss. I'd read that report during my initial training. It was a case study in system failure, a cascading series of malfunctions that led to disaster. The train had been moving at 15 kilometers per hour when the brakes failed. It had coasted slowly into the station, unable to stop, slamming into the concrete barrier at the end of the platform. I looked at the console. The unregistered train was still moving at 15 kilometers per hour. My chest tightened. I pulled up the archived speed data from incident number 4721, overlaying it on the current train's trajectory. The match was exact. Speed, route, timing. The unregistered train was replicating the accident. I keyed the radio again, my voice sharper. Track 6, this is Central Operations. You are ordered to stop immediately. Respond. Silence. The train continued its slow approach toward Ridgewood. The platform camera feed showed the empty station, the tracks stretching into the darkness beyond. I called down to security. This is Carver in Central Ops. I need a unit dispatched to Ridgewood Station, Blue Line, immediately. We have an unscheduled train inbound, no operator contact. Copy that. Unit en route. ETA 6 minutes. 6 minutes. The train would arrive in 4. I watched the icon creep forward on the console, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. At 0151, the train reached Ridgewood Station and came to a full stop. The platform camera showed it clearly now. 6 cars, dark windows, doors closed, and then slowly, the doors opened. The interior lights flickered on, dim, stuttering like failing fluorescence. I could see inside now. Empty seats, handrails, scuffed floors, no passengers. But something was wrong. The lights didn't stabilize. They pulsed irregularly, casting the interior in a sickly, rhythmic glow. On, off, like a heartbeat. I zoomed in on the nearest camera angle, trying to get a better view of the train's cabin. The doors remained open, waiting. The platform was still empty. And then I saw movement. Not on the platform, inside the train. A shadow passed across one of the windows, quick and low, as though someone had ducked beneath the camera's line of sight. I rewound the feed, playing it back frame by frame. The shadow was there, distinct, moving from one end of the car to the other. The security team radioed in. Central Ops were on site at Ridgewood. Platform is clear, no train visible. I blinked. What do you mean, no train? It's right there, track 6. Negative. Track 6 is empty, no train, no crew. I looked at the console. The icon was still there, stationary at Ridgewood. I looked at the camera feed. The train was still there, doors open, lights flickering. Check again, I said, my voice tight. We're standing on the platform now, there's nothing here. I didn't respond. I just stared at the screen. At 0156, the doors closed. The train's icon began moving again, pulling away from Ridgewood, continuing eastbound. I tracked it for another 17 minutes as it moved through the network, stopping at 3 more stations, opening its doors, waiting, then moving on. Each time I dispatched security, each time they reported the platform empty. At 0213, the train reached the end of the line, Harborview Terminal, and stopped. The icon remained stationary for 8 minutes, then vanished from the console entirely. I pulled up the event log, no entry, no record. The system showed no unscheduled train on track 6, no anomaly, no error, just a routine night. I filed an incident report anyway, attaching screenshots of the console and the camera feeds. I submitted it at 0230. By 0300 hours, the report had been flagged as erroneous and removed from the database. A note appeared in my inbox. Unable to verify described anomaly. No supporting data found. Recommend recalibration of operator workstation. I didn't argue. I didn't escalate. I just sat there staring at the master console, watching the scheduled trains move through their predictable routes. The unregistered train has appeared 4 more times since then. Always on track 6. Always at 0142. Always following the same route, the same speed, the same pattern. I don't report it anymore. I just watch. Last night I noticed something new. When the train stopped at Ridgewood and the doors opened, the flickering lights inside synchronized. They pulsed in a steady rhythm, 60 beats per minute, the same rhythm as a human heart. Some trains run on schedules we can't see. They follow routes that don't appear on any map, stopping at stations that exist only in memory. I used to think the system was mine to control. Now I know better. Some movements are beyond authorization. Some trains don't need operators. They run on their own time. Carrying passengers will never count. Story 4. Access denied. Terminal 47. Authorization codes were sacred, each one tied to a specific badge, a specific person, a specific purpose. That's why the access request from badge number 8844 felt like a bureaucratic ghost. The worker it belonged to, Raymond Howell, had been missing for 12 years, last seen entering tunnel section 9C during a routine inspection. The request logs showed his badge moving through corridors that didn't exist on any official map. And every single approval bore my supervisor signature. Codes I never entered, authorizations I never gave. My name is Laura Whitman, and I've been the Systems Authorization Supervisor for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 6 years. My job is precise and unforgiving. I control access to every restricted area in the network. Tunnels, maintenance shafts, electrical rooms, sub-basements, equipment vaults. If you need to enter a secured zone, you submit a request through Terminal 47, my workstation, and I verify your credentials, cross-reference your work order, and issue a temporary access code. No code, no entry, no exceptions. The system is designed to be foolproof. Each badge is linked to a personnel file containing biometric data, work history, and clearance level. Each request is logged with a timestamp, location, and purpose. Each approval requires my unique supervisor signature, a 12-digit alphanumeric code that only I possess. The integrity of this system is absolute. It has to be. The tunnels are dangerous and unauthorized access can be fatal. I work the night shift, 2200 hours to 0600 hours, 5 nights a week. The control room is small, just my workstation, a secondary terminal for backup operations, and a wall-mounted screen displaying the network's security grid. Most nights I process between 8 and 12 access requests from maintenance crews, engineers, and inspection teams. The work is routine, methodical, and quiet. The night of October 9th started normally. I logged in at 2204, reviewed the pending requests, and began processing them one by one. Track inspection for Section 4A. Electrical diagnostic in Substation 12. Ventilation maintenance in Tunnel 7D. Standard stuff. At 2347, a new request appeared on my screen. Access request number 10293, badge number 8844, Raymond Howell. Requested location, tunnel section 9C. Purpose, routine structural inspection approval. Status pending. I frowned. The name didn't sound familiar, but we employed hundreds of people and I didn't know everyone. I pulled up the personnel file for badge number 8844. The file loaded slowly, the system lagging slightly, which wasn't unusual for older records. But when the data appeared, my stomach dropped. Raymond Howell, maintenance engineer. Employment start date June 4th, 2001. Employment end date October 9th, 2012. Status, missing, presumed deceased. Last known location, tunnel section 9C. I stared at the screen, my pulse quickening. Raymond Howell had been missing for 12 years. I vaguely remembered hearing about the case during my onboarding. One of those cautionary tales about tunnel safety and the importance of following protocol. He'd entered tunnel section 9C for a routine inspection and never came back. Search teams had combed the tunnels for days, but they found nothing. No body, no equipment, no trace. The case was eventually closed, presumed dead. And now his badge was submitting access requests. I checked the request details again. The timestamp was current. The location was tunnel section 9C, the same section where he disappeared. The purpose was listed as routine structural inspection, identical to the work order from 2012. I flagged the request as erroneous and submitted a note to IT. Badge number 8844 associated with deceased personnel. Please deactivate and investigate. I moved on to the next request. At 0034, another request from badge number 8844 appeared. Access request number 10294. Badge number 8844, Raymond Howell, requested location. Tunnel section 9C. Purpose, routine structural inspection approval status pending. I frowned and flagged it again, this time escalating the note to the senior IT administrator. Badge number 8844 continues to generate requests. System error. Immediate deactivation required. At 0112, a third request appeared. This time, the approval status wasn't pending. It was approved. Approval status. Approved authorized by Laura Whitman. Supervisor code LW4. 479 Alpha. My hands froze on the keyboard. I hadn't approved that request. I hadn't entered my supervisor code. I hadn't touched that file. I pulled up the access log, searching for the approval timestamp. The entry was there, clear and official, stamped with my code and my digital signature. But I hadn't done it. I called down to IT. This is Whitman in systems authorization. I need someone to check Terminal 47. I'm seeing unauthorized approvals under my credentials. Can you provide specifics? The technician asked. Access request number 10294. Approved under my code. I didn't authorize it. Hold on. I waited, staring at the screen. The request log now showed badge number 8844 moving through the system. According to the mapping overlay, Raymond Howell's badge was active, his location updating in real time as he moved deeper into tunnel section 9C. The technician came back on the line. I'm not seeing any unauthorized access in the logs. Everything shows a standard approval process. Are you sure you didn't process it earlier? I'm positive. I've been watching the terminal all night. Could be a cache issue. Try logging out and back in. I did. The log remained the same. At 0145, another request appeared. Access request number 10295, badge number 8844. Raymond Howell requested location. Sub-level 4, corridor 19. Purpose, equipment retrieval approval status. Approved authorized by Laura Whitman. Supervisor code LW4479. Alpha Corridor 19 wasn't on any map I recognized. I pulled up the network's architectural database and searched for it. No results. I expanded the search to include decommissioned sections, historical blueprints, and archived plans. One entry appeared, Corridor 19, Sublevel 4. Constructed in 1973 as part of the original expansion. Sealed in 1981 due to structural instability. Access permanently restricted. The corridor had been bricked up for over 40 years. But according to the tracking overlay, badge number 8844 was inside it. I zoomed in on the map, watching the location marker move. It advanced slowly through the corridor, pausing occasionally, then continuing deeper. The path it followed didn't align with any known tunnel or shaft. It moved through solid walls, through sections marked as collapsed, through spaces that shouldn't exist. At 0203, a new request appeared. Access request number 10296, badge number 8844. Raymond Howell requested location sublevel 6, maintenance vault 47. Purpose final inspection approval status approved authorized. By Laura Whitman, Supervisor code LW4479. Alpha sublevel 6 didn't exist. The network's deepest operational level was sublevel 4. Anything below that was geological bedrock and abandoned excavation. I called security. This is Whitman. I need a team dispatched to Tunnel Section 9C. We have an unauthorized access situation. Copy. What are we looking for? Badge number 8844. Raymond Howell. There was a pause. Howell, the missing maintenance guy from 2012? Yes. You sure about this? Just send the team. 20 minutes later, security radioed back. We're in Section 9C. It's empty. No personnel, no equipment, no sign of entry. What about the sealed corridors, Corridor 19? That section's been bricked up for decades. No way in or out. I didn't respond. I just watched the tracking overlay as badge number 8844 continued to move, descending deeper into sublevel 6, into spaces that shouldn't exist. At 0247, the location marker stopped. It remained stationary for 18 minutes. Then at 0305, a new request appeared. Access request number 10297, badge number 8844. Raymond Howell requested location Terminal 47, purpose. Supervisor verification approval status approved authorized by Laura Whitman, Supervisor code LW4479, Alpha Terminal 47, my terminal, my workstation. The tracking overlay updated. The location marker moved from sublevel 6 to my current position. According to the system, badge number 8844 was now in this room. With me. I looked around the control room. I was alone. The door was closed. The lights were steady. The backup terminal sat dark and silent in the corner. But the overlay insisted. Badge number 8844. Raymond Howell. Right here. I reached out and touched my own badge, clipped to my shirt. It was warm. At 0312, my terminal screen flickered. A new message appeared in the request queue, not formatted like a standard access request, just plain text. Thank you for approving my access. I stared at the message, my breath shallow. The screen flickered again and the message changed. I've been down here a long time. But I finally found my way back. The terminal went dark. When it restarted, the request queue was empty. Badge number 8844 no longer appeared in the active tracking overlay. The access logs showed no approvals under my code. No requests from Raymond Howell. No anomalies, just a routine night. I logged out at 0600 hours and left the building without speaking to anyone. I haven't returned to Terminal 47 since. I filed for a transfer, medical leave, anything. But this morning I received an email from the personnel department. Subject: access request approved. Inside there was a single line. Welcome to Sub-Level 6. Authorization isn't just about granting access, it's about acknowledging who's already inside. I used to think sealed corridors kept things out. Now I understand. They don't seal things out, they seal things in. And sometimes, when you approve the wrong request, you realize the locks were never meant to protect us from them. They were meant to protect them from us. Story 5. The PA announcement he didn't make. The PA system was my voice, amplified, standardized, broadcast across every platform and corridor in the network. I controlled every announcement, every alert, every syllable that echoed through the underground. So when the speakers crackled to life at 0247 without my input, delivering a calm, measured message in a voice identical to mine, yet older, strained, unfamiliar, I felt the ground shift beneath me. The announcement referenced a train diversion plan discontinued in 2008, and when I pulled the system logs, the message was time-stamped for tomorrow. My name is Kenneth Hale, and I've been the Public Communications Control Officer for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 7 years. My role is singular. I am the voice of the system. Every announcement passengers hear, train delays, service interruptions, platform changes, safety reminders, originates from my workstation. My voice is recorded, modulated, and broadcast through 463 speakers distributed across the network. The PA system is a closed loop. Only authorized personnel can access it, and during the night shift, that means me. The control interface is locked behind biometric authentication, and every message I broadcast is logged with a timestamp, a transcript, and an audio signature. There are no exceptions. There are no errors. I work the overnight shift, 2,200 hours to 0600 hours, 5 nights a week. The control room is small. Just my workstation, a microphone array, and a wall of monitors displaying live feeds from every station. Most nights I make fewer than a dozen announcements. A late-running train. A maintenance delay. A reminder to stand clear of closing doors. The work is routine, precise, and solitary. The night of November 18th started unremarkably. I arrived at 2203, logged into the system, and settled into the familiar rhythm of monitoring train schedules and reading passenger alerts. The first few hours passed quietly. A minor delay on the red line at 2341. A service advisory for track maintenance at 0015. Standard operational communication. At 0247, the speakers activated. I wasn't touching the microphone. My hands were on the keyboard reviewing the next day's scheduled maintenance. But the PA system crackled to life, and my voice, calm, measured, professional, filled the control room. Attention all passengers. Due to an unforeseen service disruption, Blue Line trains will be diverted to the Northfield bypass effective immediately. Please proceed to alternate exits and follow directional signage to surface transit connections. This diversion is in accordance with Emergency Protocol 7 Gamma. We apologize for the inconvenience. Thank you for your patience. The message ended. The speakers went silent. I stared at the microphone, my heart pounding. I hadn't made that announcement. I hadn't even touched the system. I pulled up the broadcast log. The entry was there, time-stamped at 024712, labeled as a live announcement, tagged with my operator ID. But I hadn't spoken those words. I replayed the audio file. The voice was mine, my tone, my cadence, my phrasing. But there was something wrong with it. The delivery was slower, more deliberate, as though the speaker was exhausted. And the content made no sense. The Northfield bypass was a contingency route that had been decommissioned in 2008, replaced by a more efficient rerouting plan. Emergency Protocol 7 Gamma hadn't been active in over a decade. There was no current service disruption on the Blue Line, no reason for a diversion. I checked the live system map. All trains were running normally, no delays, no alerts. I called down to Central Operations. "This is Hale in Communications. Did you just receive a PA announcement about a Blue Line diversion?" "Negative," came the reply. "Everything's green over here. Why?" I think there was a system glitch, a false announcement." "You want me to log it?" "No. I'll handle it." I hung up and stared at the broadcast log, trying to make sense of what had happened. The system couldn't activate on its own. It required authentication. It required my voice, my access, my authorization. But the log was clear. I had made the announcement. At 03:15 it happened again. The speakers crackled and my voice returned, delivering a new message. "Attention all passengers. The Northfield bypass diversion remains in effect. Blue Line service will not resume on standard routing until further notice. Passengers are advised to exit at the next available station and await further instructions. Emergency Protocol 7 Gamma is currently active. We appreciate your cooperation." I lunged for the microphone, cutting off the system manually. The speakers went silent mid-sentence. I pulled up the broadcast log, another entry, another timestamp. 03:15:04. Another audio file tagged with my operator ID. I replayed it. The voice was mine, but this time there was an edge to it, a tension, a strain, as though the speaker was trying to remain calm under pressure. I checked the metadata. The announcement had been broadcast to every station in the network. 463 speakers, thousands of potential listeners. But Central Operations reported no disruption, no confused passengers, no inquiries. It was as though the announcement had been heard only by me. I ran a diagnostic on the PA system. No faults, no errors, no unauthorized access. The system was functioning perfectly. At 03:42, the speakers activated again. This time, the message was different. "This is Kenneth Hale, Public Communications Control Officer. If you're hearing this, do not trust the previous announcements. The Northfield bypass is not active. Emergency Protocol 7 Gamma was discontinued in 2008. I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't know where these messages are coming from, but they're not mine. They're not real. Please disregard." The message ended. I felt cold. The voice was mine, exhausted, desperate, pleading. But I hadn't spoken. I hadn't touched the microphone. My lips hadn't moved. I pulled up the broadcast log. The entry was there, stamped at 03:42:29. But the timestamp for the previous message, the one about the diversion, was now listed as 03:42:30. 1 second later. That wasn't possible. The messages had been minutes apart. I'd heard them in sequence. I'd logged them in real time. I ran the diagnostic again. No errors, no anomalies. At 04:08, the system activated for the 4th time. "This is Kenneth Hale. I'm trapped in the control room. The doors won't open. The emergency override isn't responding. The system is broadcasting messages I didn't make, and I can't stop it. If anyone is listening, please send help, please. I don't know how much longer." The message cut off abruptly, replaced by static. I stood up, my hands shaking. I walked to the control room door and tested the handle. It opened smoothly. The emergency override light was green. The system was functioning normally, but the message had been real. I'd heard it. My voice begging for help, trapped in this room. I checked the broadcast log. The entry was there, Bornil, stamped at 04:08:17. But the timestamp on the next entry, the one I hadn't heard yet, was listed as 04:08:18, and the entry after that, 04:08:19, and the one after that, 04:08:20. The log stretched forward, listing dozens of announcements I hadn't made, all stamped with future timestamps, all tagged with my operator ID. I scrolled through them, my stomach tightening. 04-1203. The diversion is permanent. 04-1547. There is no exit. 04-1922. You're already inside. 04-2301. You've been here longer than you think. I stopped scrolling. At the bottom of the log, there was one final entry, stamped for 05-59-59, 1 second before the end of my shift. I clicked on it. The audio file loaded. My voice, calm and measured, delivered one last message. This is Kenneth Hale. If you're hearing this, you're not listening to a recording, you're listening to yourself. You've been making these announcements for years, you just don't remember. The system doesn't broadcast to passengers, it broadcasts to you. Welcome to the loop. The message ended. I sat in the control room staring at the screen as the speakers crackled softly overhead. At 05:59, the PA system activated one final time, and I heard myself speak. Voices echo longer than we think. Some announcements don't end. They repeat, looping back on themselves, trapping the speaker inside their own words. I used to think I controlled the PA system. Now I know the truth. The system doesn't need my input. It just needs my voice. And once it has that, it can say anything. Forever. Story 6. Loopback feed number 12. The cameras looped predictably when buffering, a harmless quirk of aging hardware cycling through the last few seconds of cached footage until the live feed reconnected. But camera 12 started looping sequences that grew longer with each pass, revealing more of the dim tunnel with every repetition. Sections I'd never seen before, deeper into the darkness. And in the final seconds of the latest loop, a figure appeared hunched beside the track, its head slowly lifting toward the lens. When I checked the reflection in my monitor, the shape was standing behind my chair. My name is Martin Cross, and I've been the CCTV and surveillance supervisor for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 6 years. My job is to monitor, maintain, and analyze the network's extensive camera system. 314 cameras covering platforms, corridors, tunnels, and access points. I watch the city's underground unfold in real time, frame by frame, one screen at a time. The control room is divided into zones. I oversee Zone 3, which includes the eastern tunnels, the oldest sections of the network where the infrastructure is most fragile and the lighting is worst. The cameras in Zone 3 are relics, installed in the early 1990s, prone to signal degradation and notorious for buffering issues. When a camera loses connection, it loops the last few seconds of cached footage until the feed stabilizes. It's a known quirk. Harmless, annoying but harmless. I work the night shift, 2,200 hours to 600 hours, 5 nights a week. The work is solitary, methodical. I watch, I log, I report. Most nights, nothing happens. A rat crosses a tunnel, a maintenance worker checks a junction box, a train passes through. The rest is stillness. Camera 12 has always been problematic. It's mounted deep in tunnel section 4E, a rarely used maintenance corridor that connects 2 decommissioned platforms. The camera's feed is grainy, the lighting poor, and it buffers more than any other in the system. I've filed 3 maintenance requests for it over the past year, but it's low priority. Nothing critical happens in that tunnel. It's just empty track and concrete. The night of December 2nd started like any other. I logged in at 22:08, ran the standard diagnostic checks, and settled into the familiar rhythm of monitoring feeds. By midnight, most of the system was quiet, just a handful of maintenance crews and the occasional late-night train. At 0034, camera 12 started buffering. The feed froze, then looped. 3 seconds of empty tunnel repeating over and over. I sighed, made a note in the log, and moved on to the other screens. At 0041, the feed stabilized. The loop broke and the live image returned. Empty tunnel, dark tracks, nothing unusual. At 0103, camera 12 buffered again. This time the loop was longer. 6 seconds, empty tunnel. Shadows stretching across the floor. The faint outline of a support pillar at the far edge of the frame. The loop played once, twice, 3 times, then reconnected to the live feed. I frowned. Buffering usually cycled the same 3-second clip until the connection returned. A 6-second loop was unusual. I made another note. At 0128 it buffered again, 9 seconds this time. The tunnel stretched deeper into the frame, revealing sections I hadn't seen before. The camera's angle seemed to shift slightly, panning further to the right, exposing more of the corridor. The lighting was dimmer here, the shadows heavier. The loop repeated. 9 seconds. Empty tunnel. Darkness. Then the live feed returned. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to understand what I was seeing. The camera's angle shouldn't change. It was a fixed position mount bolted to the ceiling. But the buffered footage showed a perspective I didn't recognize. A deeper view of the tunnel, as though the camera had moved. At 0214, camera 12 buffered again. 12 seconds. The loop started as before. Empty tunnel, shadows, support pillars. But this time, in the final 3 seconds, something new appeared. A shape. Low to the ground, barely visible in the dim infrared lighting. It was positioned beside the track, hunched, motionless. The loop repeated and I watched it again. The shape didn't move. It just sat there, dark and indistinct. I rewound the feed manually, replaying the buffered sequence frame by frame. The shape was real, not a shadow, not a trick of the light. It was there, crouched beside the track as though waiting. I checked the live feed. The tunnel was empty. At 0247, the camera buffered again. 15 seconds. The loop began. Empty tunnel, shadows, support pillars. And then, at the 9-second mark, the shape appeared again. But this time, it was closer. It had moved. In the final 6 seconds of the loop, the shape shifted. Slowly. Deliberately. Its head, or what I assumed was its head, began to lift, turning toward the camera. I felt my pulse quicken. The loop repeated. The shape's head continued to rise, the motion smooth and unhurried until it was facing the lens directly. I couldn't make out any details. The resolution was too poor. But the posture was wrong. The proportions were wrong. It didn't look human. The live feed returned. The tunnel was empty. I called down to security. "This is Cross-in surveillance. I need someone to check tunnel section 4E. I'm seeing something unusual on camera 12. "Copy, what are we looking for?" "I don't know, just check the tunnel. Let me know if you see anything." "Roger. We'll head over now." I waited, staring at the screen, my hands gripping the edge of the desk. At 0321, camera 12 buffered again. 18 seconds, the loop started. Empty tunnel, shadows, support pillars. At the 9-second mark, the shape appeared. At the 12-second mark, it moved closer. At the 15-second mark, its head lifted. And at the 18-second mark, it stood up. The figure was tall, too tall, its limbs elongated and angular. It rose slowly from its crouch, unfolding itself like something mechanical. Its head tilted to one side, and for a moment, I thought I saw eyes. 2 pale points reflecting the camera's infrared light. The loop repeated. The figure stood motionless, staring at the lens. The live feed returned. Security radioed in. "We're in section 4E. Tunnel is clear. No personnel, no obstructions, nothing unusual." I didn't respond. I just watched camera 12. At 0354, the camera buffered again. 21 seconds, the loop began. The figure was closer now, standing in the center of the frame, directly beneath the camera. Its head was tilted back, staring upward, its limbs hanging loosely at its sides. In the final 3 seconds of the loop, it moved. Not toward the camera, not away. It moved toward me. I blinked, confusion flooding my thoughts. That didn't make sense. The camera was miles away, mounted in a tunnel I'd never visited. The figure couldn't be moving toward me, but the perspective shifted. The tunnel walls receded. The figure grew larger, filling the frame as though the camera was moving backward, retreating. The loop ended, the live feed returned, the tunnel was empty. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the far side of the control room, putting distance between myself and the screens. My hands were trembling. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. When I returned to my workstation, camera 12 was buffering again. 24 seconds, I didn't want to watch. But I couldn't look away. The loop started. The figure was gone, the tunnel was empty, shadows, support pillars, darkness. And then, at the 18-second mark, I saw something else. A reflection. The camera's lens captured a faint ghost image, a dark shape standing behind the camera just out of frame. The reflection was distorted, barely visible, but the outline was unmistakable. The figure was behind the camera, in the control room behind me. I spun around, my heart hammering. The room was empty. The door was closed, the lights were steady, I was alone. I turned back to the screen. The loop continued. The reflection remained, faint and ghostly, a shadow that shouldn't exist. At the 24-second mark, the reflection moved. It leaned forward, closer to the lens, as though inspecting the camera. And in that moment, I realized what I was seeing. The reflection wasn't showing the tunnel, it was showing my monitor. The figure was standing behind my chair, leaning over my shoulder, staring at the screen. Staring at me. The loop ended. The live feed returned. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just sat there, staring at the empty tunnel on the screen, feeling the weight of something standing behind me. I logged out at 0600 hours and left the building without speaking to anyone. I haven't returned since. But last night I received an email from the surveillance system. An automated alert. Camera 12 had detected motion in tunnel section 4E. The attached screenshot showed the tunnel, empty as always, except for one detail. In the reflection on the camera lens, barely visible, was my face, staring back at myself. Cameras don't just record, they remember. And sometimes they show you things that haven't happened yet, or things that happened long ago. I used to think surveillance meant watching. Now I know it means being watched. The feeds don't just capture the tunnels, they capture us. And once you're in the system, you never really leave. Story 7. The Master Key Alert. The Master Key was digital, abstract. A piece of code capable of unlocking every door, panel, and gate in the network. It existed only in theory, activated solely through my direct authorization, and it had never been used outside of emergency drills. So when the system pinged at 0241, reporting the key in motion, traveling through zones that had been bricked up and abandoned, my first instinct was to dismiss it as a software error. My second instinct died when I realized the tracking icon was following me, aligning perfectly with my own location every few steps, as though I was the one carrying it. My name is Richard Calloway, and I've been the Access Control and Emergency Supervisor for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 10 years. My role is to oversee the digital security infrastructure of the network, managing access codes, monitoring breach alerts, and controlling the master key system. The master key isn't a physical object. It's a digital authorization protocol, a piece of encrypted code that can override any lock in the system. It exists as a fail-safe for catastrophic emergencies, fires, structural collapses, hostage situations, scenarios where immediate unrestricted access is required. The master key is never activated casually. Its use requires my explicit authorization verified through biometric authentication and a 16-digit override code that only I possess. In 10 years, I've activated it exactly 3 times, all during scheduled emergency drills. I work the night shift, 2,200 hours to 0600 hours, 5 nights a week. The control room is compact, lined with monitors displaying the network's security grid. A real-time map showing every locked door, every restricted zone, every access point. Most nights, nothing happens. A maintenance crew requests entry to a secure area. A security team exits a patrol route. The system logs it. I verify it. The work is routine. The night of January 11th started quietly. I logged in at 22:06, ran the standard security diagnostics, and reviewed the night's access requests. Everything was normal. By midnight, the system had settled into its usual rhythm. Occasional pings from maintenance crews, routine check-ins from security patrols. Nothing unusual. At 0241, the master key alert activated. A harsh chime echoed through the control room and a red notification flashed across my primary monitor. Master key active status in motion. Current location tunnel section 8. A authorization Richard Calloway. I stared at the screen, my stomach dropping. I hadn't activated the master key. My hands were on the keyboard. I hadn't entered the override code. I hadn't touched the biometric scanner, but the system insisted. The master key was active, in motion, authorized by me. I pulled up the tracking overlay. A bright red icon pulsed on the map, positioned in tunnel section 8A, a decommissioned maintenance corridor in the oldest part of the network. The icon moved slowly, advancing deeper into the tunnel. I ran a diagnostic on the authorization system. No errors, no unauthorized access. The activation log showed my credentials, my biometric signature, my override code, all verified, all correct. But I hadn't done it. I called down to security. This is Calloway in access control. I need a team dispatched to tunnel section 8A. We have an unauthorized master key activation. Unauthorized? The log shows your authorization. I didn't authorize it, just send a team. Copy, they're en route. I watched the red icon move across the map. It advanced through tunnel section 8A, paused at an intersection, then continued into section 8B, a zone that had been sealed in 1987 due to structural instability. The corridor had been bricked up, removed from all operational maps. But the master key was inside it. At 0249, the icon stopped. It remained stationary for 4 minutes, then resumed movement, advancing into section 8C. Security radioed in. We're at the entrance to section 8A. The corridor's sealed. There's no way in. What about the brickwork? Any signs of breach? Negative. The seal's intact. Looks like it hasn't been touched in decades. Check again. We're checking, but there's nobody here. I zoomed in on the tracking overlay. The red icon was now in section 8D, moving steadily deeper into zones that shouldn't exist. At 0302, I noticed something strange. I'd been sitting at my workstation for the past 20 minutes, staring at the screen. But the red icon's path, the route it had taken through the tunnels, matched my own position. Not the position of the icon, my position. I pulled up the building's internal security system, which tracked personnel badges within the control center. My badge was registered in the surveillance hub, second floor, north wing. The red icon on the tunnel map had moved through the same sequence of corridors at the same intervals, as though it was following my movements within the building. I stood up, my heart pounding. The red icon on the map stopped. I took 3 steps toward the door. The red icon moved 3 increments forward. I stopped. The icon stopped. I walked back to my desk. The icon retreated, mirroring my movement. I felt cold. The master key wasn't moving through the tunnels. It was moving with me. I sat down and pulled up the Master Key's historical log, searching for any previous activation. The system showed 3 entries, all from emergency drills, all authorized by me all years ago. But at the bottom of the log there was a 4th entry I didn't recognize. Master Key activation number 0001. Date, January 11th, 2015. Authorization Richard Calloway. Status active, never deactivated 9 years ago. I didn't remember that activation. I'd started working for the MTA in 2014, but I had no memory of activating the Master Key outside of drills. I clicked on the entry, pulling up the full log. The activation timestamp read 0241, the same time as tonight's alert. The location was Tunnel Section 8A, the same location. The log showed the Master Key moving through the tunnels, advancing through Sections 8B, 8C, and 8D, following the exact same path as tonight. And at the bottom of the log there was a note. Key carrier did not return, presumed lost. Key remains active. I stared at the screen, my breath shallow. The Master Key had been activated 9 years ago, and it had never been deactivated. It had been moving through the tunnels ever since, following its original path, looping endlessly through the sealed corridors. And tonight, it had synced with me. At 0317, my workstation screen flickered. The tracking overlay distorted, and the red icon split into 2. One icon remained in the tunnels, moving through Section 8E. The other icon appeared in the control room, on me. I looked down at my badge. It was warm, almost hot to the touch. The 2 icons on the map began to converge. The one in the tunnels moved toward the surface. The one in the control room moved toward the tunnels. At 0334, they merged. The screen flashed red and a new notification appeared. Master Key synchronization complete. Key carrier, Richard Calloway, status in transit. Destination Tunnel Section 8A. I stood up, my legs shaky. I wasn't in the tunnels, I was in the control room. I hadn't moved, but the system insisted. I was in transit, moving toward the tunnels. At 0341, the control room door unlocked. I didn't touch it, I didn't approach it, but the electronic lock disengaged and the door swung open slowly, revealing the dim corridor beyond. The red icon on the map pulsed steadily, positioned at my exact location. At 0347, I heard footsteps, not in the corridor. Inside the control room, slow, deliberate, advancing from the far corner where the backup terminal sat dark and silent. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. There was no one there, but the footsteps continued, growing closer, crossing the room toward me. The red icon on the map moved, not on the tunnels, on the control room layout. It was inside the room, moving toward my workstation. I backed away, my hands trembling. The footsteps stopped. The screen flickered again and a final notification appeared. Master Key transfer initiated, previous carrier. Richard Calloway, 2015 new carrier. Richard Calloway, 2025 transfer complete. The screen went dark. When it restarted, the Master Key alert was gone. The red icon had vanished. The log showed no active key, no movement. No anomaly, just a routine night. I logged out at 0600 hours and left the building. I haven't returned since. But this morning I found a key in my apartment. A physical key, old brass, worn smooth. It was sitting on my desk beside my coffee as though it had always been there, and when I picked it up it was warm. Keys unlock more than doors. They unlock paths, trajectories, fates. I used to think the Master Key was a tool. Now I know it's a transfer, a loop that never closes. Once you carry it, you're part of the system. And the system never lets go. It just waits for the next carrier, the next loop, the next night at 0241. Story 8. The night shift that logged itself. The end-of-shift report was my responsibility, a detailed log of every event, every anomaly, every deviation from protocol documented in my handwriting and filed at 0600 hours sharp. So when I arrived tonight and found the report already printed sitting on my desk, detailing events I hadn't lived yet, maintenance calls I hadn't received, delays I hadn't logged, notes in my own handwriting warning me not to acknowledge certain transmissions, I felt reality fracture. The last page ended with a line I didn't remember writing but recognized instantly. If you read this, don't stay until sunrise. My name is Victor Ashford, and I've been the control room shift commander for the Metropolitan Transit Authority for 13 years. My role is comprehensive. I oversee all night shift operations, coordinate with dispatch, security, maintenance, and communications, and ensure that the network runs smoothly between 2200 hours and 0600 hours. Every decision filters through me. Every incident is logged by me. Every report is signed by me. The end-of-shift report is sacred. It's a comprehensive document detailing every event of the night: train delays, maintenance calls, security incidents, system anomalies. I write it by hand, using a standardized form, and submit it at the end of my shift. The report is my responsibility, my accountability. My signature at the bottom confirms that everything documented is accurate, that I witnessed it firsthand. I've filed over 4,000 reports in 13 years. I know the rhythm of the night. I know what happens and when. I know my own handwriting better than I know anything else. The night of February 3rd started like any other. I arrived at 21:58, logged into the command terminal, and reviewed the handover notes from the day shift. Minor delay on the red line. Scheduled maintenance on track 9. A faulty escalator at Central Station. Nothing unusual. At 22:05, I walked to my desk to retrieve the blank end-of-shift report form from the filing cabinet. The form wasn't blank. It was filled out, completely. Front and back in my handwriting detailing the events of the night shift, events that hadn't happened yet. I stood there staring at the paper, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. The date at the top was correct. February 3rd, 2025. The shift notation was correct. 2200 hours, 0600 hours. My signature was at the bottom, dated for 0600 hours, 7 hours in the future. But the report itself detailed events I hadn't experienced. 2234, maintenance crew reports unusual vibration in tunnel section 5C. Crew dispatched to investigate. No cause identified. 2312, security alert at Greenway Station, false alarm, equipment malfunction. 0047, communications intercept on channel 6. Garbled transmission, unable to trace origin. 0123, Blue Line Train 419 reports minor brake issue. Train diverted to depot. Replacement train dispatched. 0205, Central Operations logs unauthorized access attempt at Terminal 19, security investigating. 0341, surveillance reports anomaly on camera 12. No visual confirmation. I skimmed the rest of the report. The entries continued through the night, detailing incidents I hadn't logged, calls I hadn't received, problems I hadn't solved. And at the bottom of the second page, there was a handwritten note, circled twice in red ink. Do not acknowledge the transmission on Channel 9 at 0314. Do not respond. Do not log it. It's not real. Below that, another note underlined 3 times. If you read this, don't stay until sunrise. I set the report down, my hands shaking. This wasn't possible. I hadn't written this. I hadn't documented anything yet. The night shift hadn't even started. I checked the filing cabinet. The blank forms were still there, stacked neatly in the drawer. The completed report had been sitting on my desk as though I'd already finished it. I called down to Central Operations. This is Ashford in command. Did anyone access my workstation today? Negative. You're the only one with clearance. What about janitorial, building maintenance? Not that I'm aware of. Why? Just checking. I hung up and stared at the report, my handwriting, my signature, my words. At 22:34, the phone rang. I answered. Command, Ashford speaking. Hey, this is Crew 7 in Section 5C. We're getting some weird vibrations down here. You want us to check it out? My stomach dropped. I glanced at the report, the first entry. 22:34, maintenance crew reports unusual vibration in tunnel section 5C. I swallowed hard. Yeah, check it out. Let me know what you find. Copy that. I hung up and stared at the report. The entry was already written. The timing was exact. At 23:12, security called. We've got an alert at Greenway Station, checking it out now. I didn't need to ask. I already knew. False alarm. Equipment malfunction. Let me know when you've cleared it, I said, my voice tight. Will do. I looked at the report again. The second entry. 23:12. Security alert at Greenway Station. False alarm. Equipment malfunction. The night was unfolding exactly as the report predicted. At 0047, the communications officer radioed in. We're picking up something strange on Channel 6. Sounds like a garbled transmission, can't trace it. I didn't respond immediately, I just stared at the report. 0047. Communications intercept on Channel 6. Garbled transmission. Unable to trace origin. Log it, I said finally. Let me know if it happens again. Copy. I set the radio down and looked at the clock. 0049. The night was playing out exactly as written. At 0123, Blue Line operations called. Train 419 is reporting a minor brake issue. We're diverting it to the depot. I closed my eyes. I already knew. At 0205, security reported an unauthorized access attempt at Terminal 19. At 0341, surveillance logged an anomaly on camera 12. Every event, every call, every incident. All of it matched the report, word for word, minute by minute. And then, at 0314, the radio crackled. A voice came through, calm and measured, on Channel 9. I recognized it immediately. It was the transmission communications had mentioned in previous weeks. The one that repeated every night at 0314. The one that carried my voice signature. I reached for the radio, my finger hovering over the transmit button. And then I remembered the note. Do not acknowledge the transmission on Channel 9 at 0314. Do not respond. Do not log it. It's not real. I pulled my hand back. The transmission continued, delivering its evacuation message, its warning about Westbrook Station, its plea for help. I didn't respond. I didn't log it. I just listened. The transmission ended. Channel 9 went silent. At 0417, I checked the report again. There was no entry for 0314, no mention of Channel 9, no record of the transmission. But there was a new note at the bottom of the page, written in fresh ink as though it had appeared while I wasn't looking. You did the right thing. Don't look at the clock. I felt cold. I hadn't written that. The report had been completed when I arrived, but the note was new, the ink still wet. I forced myself not to look at the clock. I kept my eyes on the report. At 0500 hours, the phone rang. I didn't answer it. At 0530, the radio crackled. I didn't respond. At 0547, I heard footsteps in the corridor outside the control room. Slow, deliberate, approaching the door. I stared at the report, the last line. If you read this, don't stay until sunrise. The clock on the wall read 0549. Sunrise was at 0612. The footsteps stopped outside the door. The handle turned slowly. I stood up, grabbed the report, and walked to the emergency exit at the back of the control room. I didn't look at the door, I didn't look at the clock. I left the building at 05:52. The sun wasn't up yet. The sky was still dark. I got in my car and drove home, the report sitting on the passenger seat. When I arrived, I sat at my kitchen table and read the report one last time. The final entry, written at the bottom of the second page, was new. You made it out this time, but the shift doesn't end when you leave. It ends when the sun comes up, and you're still on the clock. I looked at my watch. 06:11, 1 minute until sunrise. The lights in my apartment flickered. The report in front of me began to change. The ink shifted, the words rearranging themselves, forming a new document, a new shift report for tonight. Dated February 4th, 2025. The first entry read, 2200 hours. Shift Commander Victor Ashford logs in. He will not leave. Some shifts never end. They loop. They repeat. They document themselves before they happen, trapping you inside your own report. I used to think I controlled the night. Now I know the night controls me. The logs don't record what happens. They decide what happens. And once your signature is at the bottom, you're part of the record, forever. Waiting for the next loop, the next shift, the next night at 2200 hours.